Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of MSP Business School with host Tim McNeil, Rob Rogers, and Brian Doyle.
Hey, everybody.
Much like one of our recent episodes where we did a bit of a focus on OSR Manage and what we do, we're going to flip it around on Brian this week and just talk a little bit about vCIO Toolbox, what a QBR really means, because much like security, there are different views on it. So I guess first, just want to start off, Brian, what does vCIO Toolbox mean to you, and how does it provide a need within the industry?
Yeah, so, simply put, the way I look at the whole vCIO process is really strategic account management. Clients, will use these terms vCIO, QBR, sometimes interchangeably, sometimes they'll have different meanings. But really, it's about strategic account management from the MSP back to their client, trying to understand how they can be a better partner to the client through understanding a little bit more about the key initiatives and challenges that client's facing on the way to whatever they interpret success to be. Now, when we talk virtual chief information officer, the nuts and bolts are, we're going to help make recommendations and guide you from a technology standpoint. But as technology's evolved, really that vCIO is truly part of the C-suite, where they're becoming part of the business decisions too, and really trying to shape how the business is going to grow through automation and other components of the technology they provide. So it's a lot different than, 10 years ago, where it was still a lot of box focus and which technologies are going to do right. But now it's really moved to a process focus kind of view. And how can we improve, automate workflow in a company? How can we make sure we've got the right security so we can have geographically dispersed staff and improve our capabilities on a global scale, right? And MSPs, even those with the smallest footprint today, still have customers that are doing big things. And because in most cases, it's fully outsourced to them, right? There's some co-managed clients out there, but you're really being looked upon to be an extension of their business, to help them with technology and to up-level yourself from just being the guys that fix things. Those guys, it's going to be a short road for those guys in the long term. And I think COVID's made a few of them realize that, as they haven't been able to go on site and just fix things, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, when you're looking at your clients, or if you're using vCIO Toolbox, and you want the outcome to be a win-win for both sides, what does that look like? What does it mean?
Sure. So I'll start with, just like any packaged software out there, vCIO Toolbox is just a tool to support a process, right? So really, if you don't define what your process is and what your goals and objectives are out of running whether it's a QBR service, whether it's, going out there and playing the role of vCIO, you've got to have goals written down. So the way we usually talk about it with our clients is, you want to set a very simple process. Annually, you want to get close to your customers and be able to build a strategic plan based on those key initiatives and challenges I referred to. Then on whatever frequency you're going to meet with that customer, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later about, frequency, but based on that frequency, you're going to meet with your customer quarterly, annually, or biannually. And in those reviews, you're going to conduct your IT assessment. And really what you're looking for in your IT assessment is, where are the gaps in their environment? And those gaps have to go beyond infrastructure, right? There's a lot of great tools. I love rapid fire tools because it goes out and gets you a lot of information, but it doesn't get you policy. It doesn't get you procedure. It doesn't get you the wraparounds as well. So, that becomes a data source to help answer some of the questions we have. But really, we're looking at a 360 view at their environment, so we can make sure that they've got the right processes, systems, and security in place to really maintain a strong environment. Once we identify those gaps, they just naturally yield recommendations or tickets, right? And really, the big difference for an MSP is, a ticket usually is tied to something that you have to do for contract compliance. And this is becoming a much bigger topic out in the MSP world, especially with all this proliferation of ransomware. We have to prove that we're doing what we say we're doing in our contract. If we don't, we could be culpable if there's a breach, right?
Definitely.
So, I'm seeing more and more where MSPs are really leveraging this, not only to better serve their clients, but also make sure they're in compliance with what they're saying that they're doing for their customers. So in my system, it's real simple. Usually if it's something that falls under "we owe you," it becomes a ticket. If it's something that's going to generate a new product or a new service, it becomes a opportunity, and it then flows into the roadmap. And the roadmap just becomes a collection of the projects that you're looking to do in support of the gaps you've identified over time. And then all you're doing is put in a priority of how to deliver based on the customer's budget. But, you know, when you talk a little bit about win-win outcomes for the customer, it's first knowing that we're really there as a partner. You know, we're not there just as a vendor, and we want to understand a little bit more about their front side. And if you introduce it the right way, the way I coach to is, hey, you know, you want to introduce this as you want to also keep yourself in check and make sure that when we're recommending projects, they're actually things that are going to push the needle for your business and not just the latest, greatest technology that we're all hearing about on the market that may or may not fit for you individually, right? So that's part one. Two, they want to understand what's the business impact of the gaps. They can care less, you know, let's come back to this on terms of performance and other types of meetings, but they want to know what's wrong with my business, what's the impact, and what do I got to be concerned about, right? Think about just almost like a general risk assessment. What am I worried about? You need to educate me to what I'm worried about that I don't know, because I'm not the tech guy.
Yeah. Then
at that stage, it's building a roadmap so they can better budget, right? There's nothing worse than when customers get those gotcha payments, right? Oh, Mr. Customer, forgot your warranties were expiring this month, and now you got to come up with $4,500 to renew them all. Or let's even go a step further. Hey guys, remember your desktop refreshes in 3 months for your 3-year or 5-year refresh cycle, and you need to come up with 50 grand now. I mean, that drives customers insane, and obviously also slows down the deployment process. So we're trying to help, you know, build a plan where a CFO can look into the mirror and go, okay, now I see what's upcoming, barring new initiatives for the next 3 to 5 years, you know, and these are my refresh cycles. And while things might change a little bit along the way, this is probably the order of magnitude I'm going to have to spend. So I better figure out how I'm going to do that, whether it's straight cash or some sort of finance vehicle. And this is when we really become embedded into the customer's whole management process. And that's really what you want to do as a vCIO. Now, most MSPs, you know, let's kind of shift gears a little bit into the performance piece and what most MSPs commit. So the first thing is most MSPs throw into all their contracts, because everybody else does, that they're going to do QBRs. And most MSPs do not deliver them. You know, if you talk to them, hey, we haven't done one in a while. We did 1 or 2. We did a couple, then people stopped coming. The first reason for that usually ties to what they're bringing as content, right? We're here to educate the customer. We're here to keep it succinct. I tell people you don't want these QBRs to go more than an hour, you know, and we want to make sure that we're focusing on the big picture. So if you go in there and you've got these incredibly long reports that are really just based on a bunch of process, you know, or performance variables. You know, when you go in there and show how many tickets you got and how quick you closed them in the SLAs, yeah, that's contract compliance, but really all you're doing is bragging. Yeah. You know, this is what we're doing. This is what we do for you, right? And a lot of MSPs feel that the value statement is, look at all that happened behind the scenes and you didn't know it. I can tell you, being a business person, I don't perceive the value in the work of what you did. It's what did you prevent from happening that I don't know about? Or what did we automate to simplify this process so I don't get as many tickets? You know, MSPs are very concerned if they don't show enough tickets, sometimes they're going to get questioned on their contract. Bigger questions on the contract are when you don't show up, you're doing everything remotely and you're not showing the customer how you're pushing the needle for them. You know, if you're doing a like for like replacement on every single refresh cycle, you know, if I was a customer, I'd be questioning why we're not looking at new technologies, especially in, you know, today's cloud first generation, right? So what I see with MSPs is where the struggle comes in QBRs is they go in with these performance reports and they're pretty exciting the first time. Customer likes all the pretty graphs and it's new. Second time, it's like, okay, cool, we're still tracking well. Third time, it's like, okay, well, I've seen this before. Good, you're doing your job, but what else?
Yeah, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but what have you done for me lately?
And that's where you start losing audience, right? That's where the CEO and CFO stop leaving the room, and now you're getting pigeonholed again with your single point of contact, which is a dangerous place to live. Because the perception isn't you're doing well as a vendor. It's, hey, my guy, Joe, he really can manage vendors well. So I'm sure if we change vendors, Joe can do well with him as well. So what we're really trying to teach is this is a process for you to get closer to the customer. I will admittedly say when I first went into this, and even when we first launched vCIOToolbox, I expected this to be more of a technical-led discussion. This is an account manager-led discussion. This is a front of the house, discussion versus the tech teams. Yes, we have to have tech support and tech people involved, but these meetings are really more big picture events. It's again, showing the customer the what and the why of everything you're doing. So when we show them the gaps report, it's not to show them what every individual issue is and what those technologies are. It's in the punchline. And we talk about punchlines and taglines a lot. The punchline is the best practice that says, Mr. Customer, because this is negative, this can all open up a vulnerability in your network because now somebody can breach your network through this through this system. Now they know what the impact is. They can understand that versus, a bunch of technology gibberish. And then from there, when you make a recommendation, we're then able to tie it back to the strategies. And that yields a business case for the customer. So why do I need to do this? Well, if you do this project, it's going to help support your geographic expansion capabilities. It's going to help you modernize your system so you no longer have outdated and end-of-life systems. And it's going to improve your security posture because now we're no longer running on a outdated system, right? Now the customer can make an informed decision on whether this is a go or a no-go, where they used to struggle before. And now you're being a partner. You're being a business person, and the win-win back to you is it's going to shorten sales cycles because they're going to see these numbers over time. They're budgeting in advance of what to predict. And once we get to these inflection points where the projects have to be delivered, it should be just a simple, let's sharpen the pencil one last time and sign off.
Even if it's plus or minus a couple percent, I mean, as long as you're within the range, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they're looking for, is it bigger than a bread box, right? Is this going to cost me 1,000? Is it going to cost me 10? Is it going to cost me 100,000, right? They're looking for that. So, that's where I see some of the deficiencies in the process. And what we're trying to coach is you got to get in there and get to know your customer. The other thing is when you talk about perceived value, it's those touches with the customer in between the touches. Like, you'll talk to your sales rep and they're like, oh, I talk to Joe all the time. But you talk to Joe because there's a project that's in progress. You talk to Joe because a ticket came in or a ticket was escalated or whatever else. How many times you talk to Joe to ask about his business? Where are you guys going? How can I help? Is there anyone I can introduce you to? Because I meet a lot of people too. Really think about, the old saying, the more you give, the more that comes back to you. If you can look at ways that you can give back to these companies, that's how you're creating intrinsic value. And that's how you go from just having meetings in their office to golf on the, golf course or, being part of their parties, and it sounds ridiculous, but that's when you've made it with a customer. The perfect example is I started vCIOToolbox and I was talking to a customer and he happened to notice it was during COVID that I had a humidor behind me. Literally a week later, at 5 cigars that he loved showed up at my door.
Nice.
And that's when you've made a personal connection somehow. You've done something different, and that's what you're looking for. It's not about what you get, but it's about making those personal connections. So it's not all about work, but doing it in a genuine way too, right? Not just to get to the next sale. It's, hey man, what's up? What's going on? And that's what a vCIO to me is. It's somebody that helps plan strategy, then helps execute operationally, but fundamentally has a different communication style with each person in the organization. And you don't get pigeonholed at the point of contact because you can help the point of contact really understand why you need to have a relationship with the CEO and CIO and how that's going to help you two as a joint. It's not meant to leapfrog them, how it's going to help you two get these things through.
But here's the thing, Brian. I mean, that was a lot of great information. And there's some of these MSPs out there, they're just starting to get into understanding account management different than an IT management, a QBR that is based on account management side versus the other side. And how do you help your clients get into that and understand the entire system from that, that paradigm shift with that?
So, an interesting phenomenon that happened to us, obviously, when we opened up our doors as a software company, we expected people to come in, grab a subscription, take a two meeting onboarding with us to understand how the system works and walk away. Very quickly, we had our customers, just through some of the conversations I had, said, hey, can you offer us some coaching, right? And out of that, became something we call vCIOToolbox Ramp Camp. And really what this is really immersing your team. Again, it comes back to investment of both time and money, just like anything else in the MSP space. And really deciding, do I want to immerse myself and really make this program succeed? Do I want to make sure this doesn't become skunkware on a shelf and that we're really doing the process? And then in our coaching program, we customize things because not all customers are equal too, right? Not everybody needs a 200 standard review to get this done. Not everybody needs a strategic plan. If you're a 4-man accounting office, your refreshes, that's your life, right? You're happy to be a 4-man accounting office. You hope that maybe someday you'll be a 5, but you're not trying to become, this 50-person massive fast growth organization. Right. So we have to assess our customers internally, say, where are we going to spend this time in the process? And then we got to decide what the process is. And if you don't commit yourself to learning the process and commit yourself to delivering the process, then you shouldn't do QBRs at all. Because they're actually going to become detrimental because your customers are why are we not doing these anymore?
Yep.
Or you put them in your contracts and that's the first thing they're going to be able to say. We haven't done a QBR in a year. What do you mean you do them? How much can I discount on that?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, have you run into, how much did you run into that in the beginning? I mean, was that something that was like, how far in did you start the wrap camps?
About 6 months in.
Yeah.
About 6 months in, we really saw that people wanted some additional implementation assistance. We put it out there and now, it's a double-edged sword, but we're seeing about a 75% take rate on that program when they come in.
Wow.
Nice. And it is about finding, just like an MSP, you find your product price and fit out in the marketplace. And at least from the seat of vCIOToolbox, we see ourselves with working with the more mid-sized to mature MSPs when it comes to ramp camp, because 1, they got the bandwidth to attend it. 2, they've got the need. They know that they can mine for some significant gold, money and golds in out there. I had a client that went out to 25 customers and showed me over $2 million that they added to their pipeline that would have never been realized just through the regular sales process, because it was all greenfield new initiatives that wouldn't have came out of just obsolescence. So really, when I say the maturity, you don't have to be a mature MSP to work with vCIOToolbox, but we're seeing that if you're willing to commit to the process, you're going to yield the results. No different than anything else. It's like working out, right? Put the reps in and something good will happen. But what we're seeing is that, it really takes that level of commitment. And we see that, look, all I have to do is look at churn and see where my success stories are. And we see that if people have gone through a ramp camp, we're still at 100%. Retainment there. If we look at, our overall subscriptions, there's probably about 20% of churn. And some of those customers I know are going to churn out because they're not going into the software. They're not doing the projects. This is a very easy thing to make a C priority in your business, even though it can yield a lot of upside. And I know 2 months before they quit when they're going to quit. I go and, we have our retention strategies to make sure that they don't do that. But again, if you're not equipped to do this, and you're not going to commit to the process, then you can't, you're not going to. I can't change desire, right?
Yeah, well, it's like anything, right? Whether it's sales, marketing, account management, QBRs, there's a segment of companies, MSPs, that they're looking for the next 6 month. This is going to be it. This is it.
That brings up an interesting point on its own, Tim, right? The reality is customers, MSPs are so focused on customer acquisition and they'll spend almost anything to get customer acquisition. Think about how many companies you guys have worked with where they told you that they brought in 6 salespeople and spent $200,000 already in salary to get nothing back. And they also spent $3,500 a month for a cold calling group so they could show up at appointments where people didn't know they were coming. And they do all this for the front end. In the meantime, they have a business. Yeah. This business is running, and it's running because of the contracts they have. And so many people forget to engage with those existing customers. It's kind of like, we got the sale. Service desk will take it from here. And that's a real big problem. When your customer's number one point of contact is probably the lowest cost person on your payroll, right? Your level 1 help desk guys. That's interesting, right? You're leaving a lot to guys that don't even, have a sales bone in their body.
Yeah.
And they're just learning their job too, right? At that stage, usually. So, what we're really trying to flip the switch on here is, look, yes, customer acquisition is huge, right? That'll never go away because if you're not growing, you're dying. I think we had an episode that was called that. But going one step further, but you got to mine for gold right where it is. Because, perfect example is, and I'll tell a story from my past. So I worked for a IT service provider as before they became MSPs. Again, gray hair on my head. But, the bottom line was we went from 8 employees to 52 employees down to 8 employees inside of 6 months because of the .com bust back in 2000. And long and short was our CEO came to us and said, I need to get some contracts or I can't make payroll. So literally I said, okay, it's roadshow time. I went to all of our existing customers with the roadmaps that we had constructed for them and said, look, you've got these 5 or 6 projects that are coming up in the next quarter. I'm willing to take 10% off if you'll commit to it today with a 50% down payment. And basically we went out and did that, and that generated almost $200,000 worth of an instant revenue back to our company from our pipeline. Now you could argue, well, you had to give a discount. Well, we weren't going to survive if we didn't. Right.
Yeah.
But the point was we were able to mine there. But what came out of that too was other projects, other things, because we deepened the conversation to see what else was going on. And that's, really it. Anytime I'm looking for, when I was an MSP and I was looking for money this month, if my team said, look, we're going to fall short of quota on our new sales run, but we want to stay at our revenue track, I would go into the roadmaps of the clients I had or get QBR meetings with these clients to kind of figure out what are going to be the next moves and then see which ones I could pull in that way. And it's a much easier sale because you already have a relationship.
So, I mean, Brian, I'm going to put on my sales hat here.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to know, how do I use vCIOToolbox as a competitive advantage versus other people who are not using, this type of software? How can I get a leg up?
Sure.
Right?
So let's start at the pre-sales mode. We have a very simple report in there called the red flag report. It's a 30-question mini assessment, if you will, where you're able to identify where some of the big problems, think of no patch management, think of storage constraints, those big hit items in an environment. And you can start building out a recommendations roadmap. Now, during this stage, you might not apply a budget to those roadmap items. You just want to illustrate them more like that. But you can take this report out to the client and say, hey, as part of our sales process, we even want to show you how our quarterly business reviews function and how we look at account management. So the first thing we did was a mini assessment based on the information we were gathering during this process. And this kind of shows you how we approach our quarterly business reviews and how we show the recommendations we're making to build a roadmap for you. Now, obviously, this is a skeleton because we're not at the point where we're engaged with you, but it gives you a feel for the process. Now, notice I have this section here that's blank. We're really interested in being a partner with the companies we work with. We're not interested in just being a vendor that supplies you assets. If you want that, sure, we can do it. But neither one of us is going to have a lot of emotion about it in that stage. So what I really like to, you'll see here, we've got a whole page about strategy. Now, obviously, we've not talked strategy at all, but we want to understand your business goals and your business challenges. In turn, we're going to educate you to the IT goals that you're going to need to hit to support your company in a best practice fashion. And then we're going to make sure that when we make recommendations, it ties to those goals. So right from the onset, you're showing the customer how they're going to be handled in the relationship, right? You're going out there and saying, look, I don't have all the answers yet because we're in pre-sales, but this is what you can expect from us. This type of report's what you do quarterly. It's going to be expanded upon in the assessment. We'll hopefully do strategy together, but the output's going to be a very predictable roadmap so you can better budget, and you have to agree to it. We only adopt what you will agree to adopting. And we don't tell them. And then conversely, we make sure we know what you haven't adopted so we can show that if there was ever an issue. But the point is now we're starting to engage the customer immediately at a different level. Most MSPs are going in there telling you what they're going to do. We're going to monitor you all your stuff. Well, everybody does that. They've been doing it since 2003. We're going to monitor all your stuff. We're going to know when it's down beforehand. We're going to fix that stuff when it comes in. We're going to be there for a help desk for you. Good. I got 3 guys telling me that. Who's the cheapest?
Exact same thing.
And then our why do you want to choose us? Well, it's our people. Right? Our people are phenomenal.
Speak in plain English. Hey, we speak in plain
White
English. Come on. We speak in plain English.
Speak in plain English. You're there. You know, now your differentiator is, hey, we have a process and a structure we follow so we can maximize your relationship with us for every customer. We want to be very transparent to you so you can see what's going on, even when it's behind the scenes, but not just performance metrics that we can pat ourselves on the back for. That's a much different, compelling sales story than we got great people. You know, we'll get you what you need.
Right into
hey, we sell Fortinet.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, so we're really setting the table. And the thing is, a sales rep that can master that art form, you know, we talk about consultative selling all the time, right? But it's hard for these guys, especially if you got somebody that was widget based, to become a consultative, you know, sales rep. I love to talk, man, but when I'm with a customer, there's only 2 ears and 1 mouth going on, because they're going to tell me what they want. And if I'm patient, I'm going to find out. And if I'm really patient, I'm not going to blurt out, you know what you need? I'm just going to go home with it, man. And I'm going to go, okay, I think they need this. Let's bring that back to them, because it's a game of, you know, I don't want to look at our relationships with our customers as a game of chance, like it's a competitive thing, but it's, look, they're moving at one pace. We're moving at a pace too. Sometimes they're going to move a little faster. Sometimes they're going to move a little slower. And we've got to adapt and adjust to their conditions. Well, we can only do that if we know what their conditions are.
Yeah.
Some businesses thrive during COVID. Some businesses have decreased. But I've listened to too many MSPs tell me, well, nobody's buying in COVID. And I'll say, are you sure about that? Or are they not buying because you're not buying in COVID?
Yeah.
You know, because I got plenty of guys that are telling me right now that they're increasing mass because they're trying to get this, and this done, right? So these are the tools that we have to take to go through the process, and this is how we can approach it as a win-win situation.
I love it.
Okay, well, I think that's just about going to round out our time for this episode, but we'll do what we do with everybody else. We'll do the speed round. So,
speed round.
So
we're not going to tell you the questions ahead.
Yeah. First time.
I should have wrote some new questions, right? That's all right. If you think I got these questions memorized in any way, shape, or form.
All right. Talk, text, or Teams.
I would say in the old days I would have said text, but it's becoming Teams.
Yeah.
I've really started to live and die by Teams.
Yeah. Music, movies, or TV.
I'm a music guy, man. Nothing beats a live concert.
Yeah, totally. God, soon enough.
Someday, right?
Yeah. What age do you want to retire?
I don't. I want to segue into a different type of work. You know, if I had my druthers, I would do this until I'm about 60 because I really enjoy it, and I think I'll have the energy for it then. And then I want to open a cigar shop. I want to hang out with some friends. I want to have some place to go. I want to do something that's a little bit less stressful, but I never want to stop, because when you stop, you die.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there'll always be some coaching and consulting in there, because can't help it.
Mac or Windows?
I'm a Windows guy.
Yeah.
I can't, struggle trying to figure out those Macs.
Yeah. If you could do, well, you pretty much just answered this, but if you could do anything outside of tech, what would it be?
Well, if I could do anything outside of tech, well, I say I'd love to be a cigar shop owner. That's because that's practical. If I could do anything outside of tech, I would probably own a bar on an island and just get to know the locals, man, and just, you know, live that way in the sun. But my wife is sun averse, and I don't see that happening.
Okay, well, look, that's going to wrap up this week's episode from MSP Business School. Just thanks. You know, it's always good to kind of flip the tables, right? So
I appreciate you guys asking some of the questions, and, you know, hopefully this brings a little insight into the vCIO process, but more importantly, just getting closer to your customers and using QBRs as the vehicle to make sure that you stay on cadence.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Good deal.
All right.
Take care, guys.
All right.
See
Have
you
a good
next
week,
week,
everybody.
All right.